Hello, everybody. I'm Albert Vartanian, and welcome to Fast Money Football on the Parlay. My partner in crime today is the one and only James Sharman. We'll review the weekend that was in the Premier League, but I think we have to start with one of the best 0-0 games you'll ever watch. Liverpool and Chelsea put on one hell of a Carabao Cup final. It had it all, James, but what really stood out to me was the quality of football that was on display. We'll get into all the drama and everything that happened with goalkeepers and offside rules and VAR and this, that, and the other. But the quality of football was world class. You just saw two teams at their peak go at each other. What was your takeaway?
And two teams that are so similar as well, in their standard. World-class players at every position, and two teams that always play each other really hard as well. We've seen that throughout this campaign in two encounters, draws. A really fun match. And, it's not often you see a 0-0, especially in a final at Wembley, Albert, where often they're dreadful matches. Which are just, encapsulated by a moment of brilliance or a moment of drama. Then we forget all the boredom beforehand, right? This was throughout the entire match. Both teams went for it in many ways, and they just couldn't beat those goalkeepers. So I thought it was one of the best finals I've seen for a long time. And for a 0-0, that really says something.
120 minutes, no goals. There probably should have been about four. I mean, we could talk about VAR until we go blue, but I just don't know what to make of it, because some of those calls were ridiculous. And it goes back to, Stockley Park, and they go through it, and the video assistant official goes over every single individual offside or goal or whatever happens. And you just see the margin of error. It's so thin. Like Lukaku, his shirt sleeve was caught offside.
Yeah, I know.
How does this get fixed? I've heard maybe ex-players to get into those VAR booths and to be the ones to make those decisions. I don't think that's the answer. Where do you go from this?
I know enough ex-players. You don't want that.
No.
At all. You really don't want that. I think the rules are the issue. Like the offside rule is the issue. I've discussed this a lot with former players, and, to a man, they say if you change the rule to allow daylight, and that's the cutoff point, that makes more sense to me. But still, it is still a black and white issue, right? Whether it's daylight, whether it's a shirt sleeve, the rule is a rule. Just prior to VAR, it was at the discretion of the referee, who would, look at the nuance of the particular play. And I think it made it more palatable, I think. But I also remember screaming at referees and linesmen saying, how can that be an offside? Or, there's no correct way to deal with this, I don't think, with offsides in particular. And quite frankly, those rules, those rulings yesterday, they were right, they were correct, I guess, but it's just you're looking for the advantage to go to the striker. And in Lukaku's case, come on, he made a great run, it was a great ball, he should be rewarded for that. A shirt sleeve is a joke. I thought the Van Dijk one was the right call as well, although it was close. If you watch it back, at first I'm screaming like, how can that be offside? But then you look it back and he is offside, and then he holds back the defending player, which allows the header across for Matip's goal. So, I think they were correct, but it just kind of ruins the flow of the game, and then you see in this big delay, you're not sure whether you should support and celebrate the goal. I just think VAR in general isn't working for me. It takes away the theater, but it's not going anywhere, right? Unfortunately, they can fine-tune it. The Premier League's got some issues. I think MLS do a better job in many ways. Other leagues do, and it's still quite new, don't forget, in the Premier League. So I think it's still got a long way to go to be corrected. But in the big game, it kind of takes away from the occasion, I think.
Yeah, we see it internationally. It gets used pretty well as well in the World Cup and the Euro Cup. It's pretty quick.
Great, the World Cup.
It's great. But for some reason, the Premier League, they're not up to speed quite yet. And poor Thomas Tuchel, that guy celebrated like 4 or 5 times. And it was stopped on the touchline. He's like, when is this thing going to go in?
I was waiting for the knee slide, right? There's one of those, he's booting down the sideline. What he's going to do? Mourinho, he's doing, oh no, he looks over, the flag's up. Even the delayed offside flags, right?
Oh my God.
They happen so often. Every game it happens, right? It's like, and it's not even close. I understand they're concerned we have VAR to back us up, but a lot of those calls aren't close.
No.
Clearly they're offside. And
what's going to happen, James? It's going to take for a player to get seriously injured for them to change that rule. It's like the icing in the NHL.
100%.
Where 2 players had to battle right into the zone, and then players were breaking their legs, and now they switched it. They started calling the icing a lot earlier. It needs to happen, especially with the offsides. You can see the play go on for 30 seconds up to a minute until the flag goes up. It just doesn't make any sense.
And we all know it's offside. If the players know it's offside, but they've got to keep playing. They're kind of half-heartedly playing, right? Like, I should probably finish this opportunity, but I know the flag's coming up. It's
Yeah.
just, it's ridiculous. And, I think with VAR, the biggest concern also is how the fans have no idea what's going on. Other sports, you watch rugby, you watch cricket, they've got it down. They've been doing it for years, and they'll use the big screen. They'll mic the referee. You know exactly what's happening and what they're looking for. And I think the fans deserve that. Whereas in soccer, they have no clue. It's like, no, too bad. We're superior to you idiot fans. We will decide this, and
Yeah.
we will give you our judgment when we're ready. It's like, come on, get off your high horse.
Yeah, I've never understood this closed door society when it comes to soccer. It makes zero sense. But let's move. Let's keep talking about this game. Obviously, goalkeepers top of the news story, top of the board when it comes to news stories from this matchup. Edward Mendy was unbelievable. I think we should probably start there.
Yeah.
Clearly, I think he made the claim for one of the best goalkeepers, if not the best goalkeeper in the world. He is just, I can't explain it. Like I don't remember seeing a goalkeeper this good in quite some time.
I think he's wonderful. He does everything, doesn't he? He's
Everything.
so athletic, but he's also a smart goalkeeper, great positioning. And when he joined Chelsea, it was kind of under the radar in many ways. It wasn't like an Alisson signing or a Donnarumma signing or even a Kepa signing when he went to Chelsea originally, right? They bring in Mendy, and it's like, wow, who is this guy? He is brilliant. And I mean, that double save he made in the second half, I mean, that's as good as you'll see this season. It was superb. I mean, a bit of a surprise that he started the game. We can talk about that. It wasn't his tournament. I think it was his second only start ever in this tournament. Kepa, who I have no sympathy for, we'll get to that. If I had a heart, I would have felt for Kepa. But Mendy's the best in the team, and they want to win trophies. So I thought for 90 minutes plus, he justified his selection because he was the reason, I think, why it was 0-0 late in that game.
I completely understand Tuchel's decision-making in terms of wanting to bring in Kepa. That was his decision before the game. He's the keeper that comes in, and according to Tuchel and the rest of his staff, he's the best penalty stopper on the side, better than Mendy, because he has more time to work on it, apparently, on the training ground. But I think for a manager, you have to adjust your game plan. I mean, when you see Mendy playing the way he was, I think you just have to keep him in. And I was listening to Danny Murphy on Talk Sport this morning, and he said he was in the crowd with the Liverpool fans. And as soon as that substitution was made, there was like a sense of relief from the Liverpool fans because it was like, thank God we don't have to face Mendy in net for penalties. Yeah. And you have to think that the players felt the same way.
Well, I chatted with Craig Forrest about this, who knows a thing or two about penalty shootouts. And he says, when you're a goalkeeper, coming in cold is extremely difficult. Your depth perception isn't there. Even from the penalty spot, it looks like the guy is 6 feet out. That's what it feels like.
Interesting.
And like I said, Mendy was in the zone, right? I mean, he wasn't going to get denied by anything, I think, in that match. I thought it was a really obvious case of Tuchel overthinking it. And we discussed on Friday how in the Champions League final, Tuchel didn't overthink it. And Pep Guardiola did overthink it, and it cost Pep in the end. In this case, I think it did cost him. I mean, they were great penalties in fairness. We should remember that. They were great penalties. But given the drama and the theater around Kepa prior to this with that other League Cup final a few years ago now, when he refused to leave the field for the shootout, Tuchel must have been aware of that and must have been aware of what this occasion, what this moment would have meant for those fans and for any observer of the game and the pressure on that guy's shoulders as well. Man, he knows, oh man, I kind of made an arse of myself before, didn't I? It was a bit embarrassing. And now I'm being brought back out there. Everyone's pointing at me thinking, you better do the job now. And then to see, 10 penalties go past him, 11, and then you got the opportunity and then you badgie over the bar. Oh man, I mean, we'll remember it for that. I think that was a great game, unfortunately. But yeah, if I'm Mendy, I'm thinking, man, what have I got to do to earn a shootout? I did just win the African Cup of Nations, by the way.
Yeah, I know.
And a shootout.
Yeah.
No, I'm not awful. Right? So, it's crazy.
He was tremendous. And like you said, everyone won't remember the game. They'll remember that moment. I mean, you come in, you give up 11 penalties, you miss it, and you lose a Carabao Cup final. Karma is a real thing, ladies and gentlemen.
Sad, isn't it?
Let's speak about the keeper on the other side, Kelleher. I feel like he's not getting talked about enough because Jurgen Klopp, instead of overthinking it, he stuck with his guy. He got us to this point in the Carabao Cup, I think bar one game because he was injured. But he got them to this point. I thought he was very good. He scored the winner. He didn't even know he scored the winner, he said after the game. And apparently he was a striker in his team, so he knows how to find the back of the net. What did you make of his performance?
Queveen Kelleher. That's how you pronounce his name, by the way.
James, I didn't say his first name because I couldn't
I've
figure it out.
Albert, I've avoided it for months. And my mate's from Cork in Ireland, and I asked him this morning, literally, how do you pronounce his name? He told me it's Queveen. Queveen
Queeving.
Kelleher. Don't forget that name because he's very good. He's been good this season when called upon. Obviously, he's in the shadow of Allison, who is one of the top 3 or 4 keepers in world football. So he gets his opportunities sparsely, but when he does a good job. And I thought he was excellent in this match once again. And like you said, he was 14 years old when he became a goalkeeper. Prior to that, he was not only a striker, but a prolific striker. He was a very good striker. And whoever made the choice, you know what? Give it a shot on goal. And it's turned out just great for him. So I don't know where his future lies. Obviously nowadays you need a good number 2 goalkeeper. But a guy like that, I think at some point we want to start games. And Alisson's going nowhere. So I think for Ireland, you're really happy you got a couple of really, really good young goalkeepers in the mix there, which you haven't said for a long time. And I thought when you see a goalkeeper score a winning goal, we saw Alisson do it. Remember that last season?
That's right, West Brom.
Yeah, that's right, against West Brom. Yeah, I love those moments, whether it's from the spot or whether it's from a corner or a free kick. They don't happen very often, but it's great to see.
And talk about somebody who's calm. Like he didn't break a sweat, he didn't smile, and do anything. He just went about his business. And I think most people won't talk about it, but that save on Lukaku in extra time was just a quick kick save, but it kept them in the game and took them to penalties. And obviously, Liverpool lifted the Carabao Cup. That takes me to my next question, which is kind of making the rounds. Can they do the quadruple? How many can they do? How many can they win? Realistically, obviously, they're in the Premier League still, FA Cup, and the Champions League. I think they have a shot at the Champions League and the FA Cup because of the depth in their squad. As we've seen, Luis Diaz yesterday was fantastic. Jota, Firmino wasn't there, but that's another option. So I think Klopp has the depth to make changes throughout these competitions to also keep them in it. But what do you think they can do?
I guarantee you, the minute the word quadruple gets bandied around is when things go down the crap.
Always.
Right, they're going to lose to Norwich this week in the FA Cup. You just watch because this is being mentioned. You know what? Listen, they got 1 cup, and that's important. I know it's the lesser of the 4.
You know what, James? People do say that, but it's important. You can tell. You see how important it was to the fans, how important it is to the players. It may not be as important getting there, but once you're there, you want to win it.
Oh no, it's one of those. I've said before. It's one of those. When you win it, it's fantastic. If you lose, it's like, it's not that important, but I think it's grown in its importance the last few years. Once again, when I grew up in the 80s, many years ago now, before you were born, Albert, shut up. It was huge, right? The Milk Cup, it was called, right? It was a really legitimate cup. It wasn't the FA Cup, but it was a legitimate cup, and it's really, I think the Champions League emerging as this number 1 trophy, and the leagues with so much money involved. You've seen the League Cup and the FA Cup, drop down the ladder a little bit. But it's kind of reinventing itself, I think, somewhat. And, given that we've been through this 2 years of hell without fans for much of these big games, seeing that packed Wembley Stadium yesterday, seeing the respect shown to the people of Ukraine as well, it kind of brought this big occasion feel to it. And I thought it meant a lot. But anyway, sorry, back to your question. I'm getting distracted here. They can win the Champions League. They've shown that. They're a good cup team, absolutely. They can win the Prem. They're still on the outside looking in. I know they're looking good, given what happened on the weekend.
Mm-hmm.
City are still, I think, in the driver's seat there because they are playing City, but it's at City. Although they got the goal differentiation now as well, which really helps. Listen, the FA Cup, we'll see. The FA Cup, again, is a knockout tournament. I think they'll get another trophy this season. Another one. I don't know what it's going to be. Personally, I want them to get the Premier League again. If I had the choice, it's a Premier League over the Champions League.
Yeah.
It's tight, it's close, but get one more of them, and then you can start, taking Klopp to the statue maker. And
he's close. He's really close.
He's very close. Yeah, outside the gates there for sure. Beside Shankly.
For the title race, they're still in contention, but obviously Manchester City picking up a valuable 3 points this weekend against Everton. Some controversy surrounding that, though, with Rodri's handball in the box after Manchester City had scored. And this is another VAR issue where this is something I learned. Apparently, the sleeve is known as the green zone. So if it hits the sleeve, it's not a handball. But if it hits the arm, the bare arm, or if you have a sleeve there, it's the red zone. It looked like it was in the red zone. I mean, I don't even know what we're talking about at this point. But if you see it with your own eyes, I don't think you need a green or red zone. It was clearly a handball. Did City get away with one?
Yeah, I mean, overthinking. Once again, people overthinking
Yeah,
stuff.
I think
That
this
was
is the name of
clearly
this
a handball.
podcast, overthinking.
Yeah, it is, right? I mean, I don't think anyone could disagree that that was not a handball. I
Oh
mean,
my
come on.
goodness.
Even Frank Lampard says that even his 3-year-old daughter knew it was a handball, which I think is a real, slight on daughters. My daughter would know that's a handball. She's not 3 years old, but I mean, come on, that's not an excuse, and you're not criticizing because of that. They're smarter than some football managers. Yeah, it's a real shame. Everton. I mean, listen, we can talk about the title race and what it meant to Liverpool, but what about Everton?
Oof.
I mean, they put in a really gutsy performance. They played well. They grinded. They defended superbly, and that could be an enormous point
One
that they
point
lost
above the
there,
drop,
right?
James.
Really important. Right? Exactly right. They're a point off the drop. And that could have been a real momentum builder, I think, for Frank Lampard's team. So I think they were really unfortunate. And City champions get lucky now and again, right? What goes around comes around. I think if you look at the course of a season, most clubs, the top clubs, get the calls. They got that call. There's no doubt about it. But if you're Everton and if you're Liverpool, you should feel aggrieved. Absolutely, that could be a really important 3 points.
And a massive matchup this weekend, Manchester City against Manchester United. Liverpool have West Ham. So both games have title race implications and top four implications. I think Liverpool can close the gap. It's just whether or not City drop points. I mean, they didn't look that great once again. I don't know if it was more the fact that Everton just looked so much better, so much more compact, more dangerous actually going forward. And obviously unlucky. If they got a point there, then I mean the title race is really on. But can they do it? I believe that they can. It's going to be tough for Liverpool, but they really need to hope City drops some points, and they have to beat City at the Etihad. I mean, it really comes down to that game.
It does, and that, of course, won't be easy. You can see a draw in that match,
Oh yeah,
absolutely. But like I said, there's still points to be won and lost, and a derby this weekend. I mean, obviously, on City should beat United. We know that, but it's a derby. Anything can really happen. Strange things happen, and United are pretty good defensively at the moment. And you're right, maybe this is that little slump that City's going through right now, which all teams go through it. Maybe it's at just the wrong time
yeah.
because they haven't been their usual fluid self, have they, the last couple of
No.
weeks? So, it's a really big weekend because West Ham's not easy either, right? For Liverpool, really difficult. That could be a total banana skin. A team that's really believing they can finish top four. So yeah, it's going to be this weekend could be an enormous weekend in the title race.
Yeah, United 47 points, West Ham 45, Arsenal right behind them 45. I mean, just a
And
couple
games
weeks
in
ago,
hand.
me and you were talking about Wolves and putting money on Wolves, which I did because they were such long shots, but really big missed opportunity losing to Arsenal this past weekend.
Yeah, and the
Or
Gunners with the
midweek,
games in
actually.
hand.
Yeah.
I mean, no one's really talking about Arsenal, right? I know we mentioned them
No.
last week, but they're quietly picking up points and doing it. You've seen, I mean, they've had a tough season. We know that. Aubameyang was a distraction, and now he's scoring for fun at Barcelona. 5 goals in 3 games, I think it is, and that can't make the hierarchy at the Emirates too happy because, like, come on, where was that for us? Like, it's ridiculous,
Yeah.
But they're a decent team. They're growing, and as we mentioned last time out, Arteta, I really believe, is a good manager who's got that club under control. So, given the games in hand, I think they're still favourites to finish top 4.
James, we're 19 minutes into this podcast, and I'm just about to mention Antonio Conte right now. I think it's going to
Hey,
be a new
see,
record for the
we
past few
promised,
weeks.
right?
Hey?
We promised, right, that we wouldn't lead with it next time, and we haven't led with it, so that's good.
Yeah, here we go. Spurs beating Leeds 4-0. Could have been a lot more, but the big story coming out of that, I mean, outside of obviously Spurs winning and Conte is happy once again. Bielsa out at Leeds. It feels kind of sad, to be completely honest with you, because we're not going to see that same Leeds that's come into the Premier League and have just entertained for the past couple of seasons. So he's out. Leeds currently just 2 points above the drop. Jesse Marsch comes in. He was a former MLS Coach of the Year. He won the Austrian Bundesliga title with RB Salzburg. And then he was recently at RB Leipzig in the Bundesliga. 38% win record, 21 games at Leipzig. I don't know much about him, but do you think this is the right time for him at Leeds, or should they have gone with more of an experienced manager who's used to being in these scenarios like Mr. Sam Allardyce?
Oh, no. I mean, can you imagine trying to convert this team from being
Oh,
a Bielsa team to an Allardyce team? And I respect Allardyce. I do. I think he's a good manager, and he gets the job done, generally speaking, where he goes to a certain level. But the switch from this swashbuckling Leeds team to an Allardyce team would have been, you can't do it over the course of 15 games. I don't think it wouldn't have been the right choice. Marsh comes aboard and has really comes from the same DNA as Bielsa, right? He learned under Rangnick and the pressing. He's not an all-out presser. He's more of a counter presser. He's targeted. So they'll still be an attacking team, but they'll do it with a little bit more system-based approach, I think.
Yeah.
And is it the right time? I mean, like, he didn't do a great job at Red Bull Leipzig. 21 games, he fell out there. He left. But prior to that, like I said, he won championships in Austria. He won championships in MLS. I think simply the fact that he's American, people frown upon it. Which is really unfair. At some point, the US will produce good coaches. They are producing good coaches. And at some point, they need to be given a chance in a big league. And I think we'll see how he does there. I think there's enough poor teams around the drop zone right now that maybe a little bump will get Leeds out of that mix. But it's going to be tough. I think the timing's good, given that, Calvin Phillips should be back in a couple of weeks, they're thinking.
Yeah.
Same with Patrick Bamford. And with those guys, had those guys played a full season, I really believe that Leeds wouldn't be in the predicament they're in. And I believe Bielsa would still be there. But that's just the nature of the beast, right? It's tough. You got to be lucky sometimes. So if those guys get healthy, in comes Jesse Marsch. He's a modern thinking manager. Players buy in. I think it could be a good hire.
Yeah, it's really refreshing to see how the fans are reacting to Bielsa and I think everyone around the Premier League is reacting to Bielsa getting sacked. No one's really cynical. Everyone's just kind of sad and thankful that he was a part of the Premier League and a part of Leeds. It was clear that he was much more than a manager to Leeds and to the fans. And you don't really see that. So it is nice to see that. And it makes this sacking, I think mutually they decided to part ways, but it makes it kind of hard to take in because you realize how much he actually meant to these people.
Yeah, I agree. Like, the club love him. Even the fans, some of them I've heard talk and say, we'd take a relegation. If it meant keeping Bielsa, we love what he's brought to the club. And I can't see there being too many fans that want a relegation. They've been 16 years out of the top flight. You got them back in there. It's sad. I wonder what his next step is. I hope he gets another gig in England. I really do.
He may retire.
Football. Maybe he will.
Yeah.
But maybe he's a Roy Hodgson type that needs football, needs that competitive drive. What is Marcelo Bielsa going to do if he's not coaching a football team? Right?
Yeah.
Maybe start a tactics blog. I don't know.
He can join Tifo and he can have his own little segment on there where he sits on his
exactly.
Yeah. You can come on here.
Hey, Parlay, I'm sure Parlay will be more than happy to welcome Marcelo Bielsa on as Fast Money Football once a week.
Imagine Bielsa talking betting odds. Oh my god!
You get Sharman or you get Marcelo Bielsa. I don't like that idea at all. No, let's not go down that road.
For Leeds, they have Aston Villa coming up on Thursday, then Norwich, Wolves, Southampton, Watford. Some winnable games in there, but all very difficult because all those teams are battling for something. In Norwich, obviously at the bottom. Wolves want to finish the top four. Southampton just look like one of the best teams in the league at the moment. Talk about a really good manager, James. Ralph Hasenhüttl.
Superb. And what I like about Southampton is they stuck with him as well, because there's some tough results. They conceded 9 goals, not once but twice. Other clubs would have let him go, but he stuck with it. They got a great system. The fans really appreciate him. They got new ownership there as well, who are extremely ambitious. And they really buy into what Hasenhüttl's doing. So I think, he might be the most underrated coach in the Premier League, quite honestly. No one really talks about him, right? I'm glad you mentioned him because I think he's doing a fantastic job there. They get points, more and more each week. And when I look at the table, I think they should be higher than they are, right? But they're close. They could climb into those European spots, I think, with a couple more wins. But
they're only 5 points off Wolves.
Yeah, exactly, right? But it's the table's that table's so compressed, right? Isn't it? Once you go behind the top 4 or 5 teams. But yeah, I'm with you. I think he could get lured to a really big club in a year or so if he keeps us up.
He was talking about retirement, but I don't know if he was kind of sending a message to the board. We'll have to wait. You never know with some of these managers. They say certain things. Conte, Hasenhüttl, Mourinho, Tuchel, Klopp. They all just say things. You never know what's true and what's not, or what they're actually trying to do. We should probably wrap up this Premier League segment with something that was fantastic to see this weekend. Christen Eriksen making his Premier League debut for Brentford, coming off the bench in the second half. They lost, but that doesn't even matter. After seeing that, it's been 8 months since he went into cardiac arrest at the Euros. How did you feel watching that?
Yeah, it was amazing, wasn't it? And he got a great ovation from the crowd and the opposing players too. It was a great moment for football, and it showed how football can unify people. Like everyone in the world wanted to see that, and we're happy. Now, like I mentioned before, was I a little bit, anxious? Yeah. Sure. That's natural. That will fade in time. I'm sure he was too. But it's great to see a player of that quality playing for a team like Brentford, who are really, they're being sucked down into that relegation zone. Hopefully, you can give him a boost. It wasn't enough in the weekend, obviously, but hey, this transcends results. Obviously, to see him back there, he's one of the great players in world football, and I hope he gets back to where he was. That's for sure.
Yeah, clearly one of the best signings Brentford probably will ever make in quite some time. And like I said, if he can get back to 80% of what he was, then I mean he's a fantastic signing. They're in tough though going to Brentford because they're sliding down the table. But getting Eriksen back in, Ivan Toney coming back, I mean they can get some results. But moving on to this week, we have the FA Cup, James, and at the top of the list, just quickly at the FA Cup futures odds, Man City obviously at the top plus 190, Liverpool plus 380. We just talked about them. Chelsea plus 450, Spurs plus 700. I mean, for Spurs, this could be it. I mean, they may not get into the top four. It could be FA Cup or nothing.
Yeah, that Spurs and that Chelsea number looks pretty tempting, doesn't it? Because Chelsea's a great cup team. We know that, despite what happened this weekend. But yeah, Spurs, who knows? I mean, Christ, if they pick up a trophy, then everything's right with Conte. I mean, I don't know what to say about him anymore. Every time he opens his mouth, it's contradictory to what you said last time, right? So they got a good win though. He was happy about that. Seeing Kane and Son combine, I think it's 37 goals now they've combined for, tops ever in the Prem, beating Drogba and Lampard. That's amazing, right? And tell you what, Harry Kane, he looks good again, doesn't he? I know you've got a little bit of an affiliation with Spurs. You like your Spurs, but you must be very happy to see the way Kane's playing because, man, I was worried there for a little bit, but he's been just lights out the last 3 weeks.
Yeah, he can do everything. I mean, it's when he drops in, he can make a pass. I mean, you give him some space, and that's exactly what he's going to do. I'm just trying to think if there's any other striker at his level in world football at the moment that can do what he does. I mean, when you look at Lewandowski, he's a pure goal scorer. Benzema, pure goal scorer. Haaland, pure goal scorer. Those guys don't really drop back and create. And I think it's also because in those teams, they have more players to create for them. At Spurs, that's not necessarily the case.
Yeah, maybe that's what it is. He's got to be a multi-tool striker, right? Hasn't he? Because you're right. He could be a fantastic midfielder if he chose to.
No problem.
You need that ability, up front, obviously. So yeah, I guess as a Spurs fan, you're happy on one hand. On the other hand, you see that value once again going up and maybe being, lured somewhere else. I know City right now favorites to sign Haaland now. Apparently they're his first choice now, apparently, this week. So maybe they're not looking at Kane, but does that mean Kane looks to move somewhere else?
I see United. I think if Pochettino goes to Manchester United, I can really see that move.
Absolutely.
But the thing, what happens then with Conte? That's a big one. I think whatever Conte decides to do this summer, I think Kane will probably follow suit.
Well, I mean, if he decides to stay, but they sell Kane for 100 plus, I mean, that's a lot of money for Conte to finally spend on players, right? So go out and get Lautaro Martinez from
Lukaku.
Inter, Lukaku. Yeah, just reinvent the Inter Miami.
Just recreate Inter in the Premier League.
Actually young, I'm not sure about all of them, but why not? I know. The Conte story will be an interesting one this summer. It really will. And what's been said behind closed doors, I don't know. He wants money, and they better provide money, otherwise he will walk.
We will see what happens. James, thanks so much once again. Guys, thanks for watching Fast Money Football. If you want to watch more parlay content, please follow us at The Parlay and reach us at parlay.tv. You can follow James Sharman at James Sharman on Twitter. You can follow me at The Real Brit V. Have a great day.